In the heart of New York City, where skyscrapers pierced the clouds and streets buzzed with endless energy, lived a young woman named Elena Ivanova. At just 24 years old, she had already seen more than her fair share of struggles. Born to immigrant parents who had left their homeland in search of a better life, Elena grew up in a small apartment tucked away in Queens. Her childhood wasn't easy, money was always tight, and sacrifices were frequent. But it taught her resilience, humility, and the value of hard work. Elena's days began early and ended late. She worked as a waitress at an upscale restaurant called the Velvet Lounge, located in one of Manhattan's most prestigious neighborhoods. It was a place where the city's elite gathered to dine on gourmet meals, sip expensive wine, and discuss million-dollar deals. For Elena, however, it was simply another job, one that paid the bills but left little room for anything else. Every night she donned her black uniform, tied her apron around her waist, and plastered a polite smile on her face as she navigated between tables filled with people whose lives seemed worlds apart from hers. Despite the long hours and demanding customers, Elena found solace in the fact that she was doing everything she could to build a future for herself. Her dream? To become a professional translator. Growing up bilingual, she spoke fluent Russian alongside English, thanks to her parents' insistence on keeping their cultural roots alive. Over family dinners, they would recount stories of their homeland, teaching Elena not only the language, but also its rich history and traditions. Though she rarely used Russian outside her home, it remained a cherished part of her identity. On this particular evening, the Velvet Lounge was hosting a charity gala, a glitzy event attended by some of the wealthiest and most influential individuals in the city. The restaurant sparkled under the glow of crystal chandeliers, and waitstaff moved like clockwork, ensuring glasses were never empty and plates were cleared promptly. Elena weaved through the crowd, balancing trays laden with hors d'oeuvres and champagne flutes, all while maintaining her signature warm demeanor. As the night wore on, Elena noticed something unusual near the bar area. A man sitting alone caught her attention, not because of his tailored suit or commanding presence, but because he looked visibly frustrated. He held his phone tightly in one hand, speaking rapidly in what sounded unmistakably like Russian. His voice carried a mix of urgency and irritation, drawing curious glances from nearby guests. Elena hesitated for a moment, unsure if she should intervene. After all, she was just a waitress, and these kinds of situations were none of her business. But then something inside her stirred. Perhaps it was empathy, or maybe it was the faint memory of hearing similar tones during her own family conversations back home. Whatever the reason, she decided to step forward. Approaching the man cautiously, she cleared her throat softly and said, "Excuse me, sir. I couldn't help but notice you're speaking Russian. Is there anything I can do to assist?" The man looked up, startled by her sudden appearance. His piercing blue eyes scanned her face, lingering on her confident yet respectful expression. For a brief moment, Elena feared she had overstepped her boundaries, but then the tension in his features eased slightly, replaced by a flicker of curiosity. "You speak Russian?" he asked, his accent thick but refined. "Yes," Elena replied, nodding fluently. Without wasting another second, the man handed her his phone. On the other end of the line, someone was speaking hurriedly in Russian, clearly trying to convey important information. Elena listened intently, piecing together the context before responding calmly in the same language. Within minutes, she clarified the misunderstanding, smoothing over what appeared to be a miscommunication regarding a business deal. When she finally hung up, the man let out a deep sigh of relief. "Thank you," he said, his tone laced with genuine gratitude. "That was unexpected and incredibly helpful." Elena smiled modestly, brushing off the praise. "It was nothing, really. Just glad I could help." Curiosity got the better of her, though, and she ventured to ask, "If you don't mind me asking, what was that about?" The man chuckled lightly, shaking his head. "Let's just say it involved a lot of money, and even more complications." He paused, studying her once again. "You're quite impressive, Miss Ivanova," she supplied quickly. "Elena Ivanova." "Well, Miss Ivanova," he continued, extending his hand, My name is Viktor Novikov, and I must admit, your timing couldn't have been better." Elena shook his hand, feeling a strange sense of pride wash over her. She didn't know it yet, but this seemingly ordinary interaction was about to set off a chain of events that would alter the course of her life forever. As she returned to her duties, sneaking occasional glances at the enigmatic stranger seated by the bar, she couldn't shake the feeling that tonight was different. Little did she know Viktor Novikov wasn't just any guest. He was a billionaire with a reputation for spotting talent where others saw only mediocrity. And Elena's quiet act of kindness had not gone unnoticed. For now, however, life went on as usual. Elena continued serving drinks, clearing plates, and exchanging polite conversation with patrons who barely acknowledged her existence. Yet somewhere, deep down, a spark of hope ignited within her, a tiny flame fueled by the possibility that maybe, just maybe, opportunities could come from the most unlikely places. All it took was a single moment of courage, and being willing to answer a call when no one else could. That night, as Elena walked home under the bright lights of the city, she replayed the encounter in her mind. Who was Viktor Novikov? Why had he seemed so intrigued by her? And why did she feel as though this chance meeting might lead to something extraordinary? These questions lingered unanswered, but one thing was certain. Elena's world was about to change in ways she couldn't yet imagine. The next morning, Elena woke up with the memory of the previous night still vivid in her mind. She replayed the events over and over again, the mysterious man at the bar, the unexpected phone call, and the way he had thanked her so sincerely. Viktor Novikov. The name echoed in her thoughts. It sounded familiar, though she couldn't quite place it. As she got ready for her shift at the Velvet Lounge, she tucked the business card he had given her into her pocket, unsure if she would ever use it. Still, there was something about him that lingered, a mix of intrigue and curiosity she couldn't shake. Her day started like any other, bustling through the restaurant's kitchen, balancing trays of food and dodging impatient customers. But, as the lunch rush slowed down, Elena found herself standing by the hostess stand, absent-mindedly twirling the edge of the business card between her fingers. On one side, it bore a simple logo, a sleek black N encased in a silver circle. Beneath it were his name, title, CEO of Novikov Global Ventures, and a phone number. No address, no email, just those few details printed in crisp, elegant font. "Who is this guy?" she muttered under her breath, half to herself and half to the empty room. Her coworker Mia overheard and leaned in curiously. "What's that?" she asked, nodding toward the card. Elena hesitated before showing it to her. "Just someone I met last night. He gave me his card after I helped him with something." Mia raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. "Helped him with what?" Elena shrugged, trying to play it cool. "It's not a big deal. He needed help with a phone call, in Russian, and I offered to assist." Mia's eyes widened. "Wait, you speak Russian? Since when?" "Since forever," Elena replied with a small laugh. "My parents are from Russia. I grew up speaking it." "Wow," Mia said, impressed. "So let me get this straight. He gave you his card because you spoke Russian? That's kind of romantic." Elena rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress a smile. "It's not romantic. He probably just appreciated the help. Besides, I doubt I'll ever call him." But even as she said it, she knew she was lying to herself. There was something magnetic about Viktor Novikov, something that made her want to know more. Later that evening, after her shift ended, Elena sat on the edge of her bed staring at the card again. Her heart raced as she debated whether or not to dial the number. What did she have to lose? If anything, it might be interesting to hear what he wanted. Taking a deep breath, she picked up her phone and pressed the digits. To her surprise, he answered almost immediately. "Hello?" His voice was smooth, confident, yet warm. "Mr. Novikov?" Elena stammered, suddenly feeling nervous. "This is Elena Ivanova. We met last night at the Velvet Lounge." There was a brief pause, followed by a chuckle. "Ah, yes, Miss Ivanova. I was wondering if you'd call." "You were?" she asked, caught off guard. "Of course," he replied. "You left quite an impression. Listen, I'd like to discuss something with you. Are you free tomorrow morning? Elena blinked, unsure how to respond. Sure. What time? 9 o'clock sharp. I'll send a car to pick you up. Just give me your address. A car? She repeated, incredulous. No, that's really not necessary. It's already arranged, he interrupted firmly. I'll see you tomorrow, Miss Ivanova. Before she could protest further, he hung up. Elena stared at her phone, her pulse racing. What had she gotten herself into? The idea of meeting him again excited her, but it also filled her with anxiety. Who exactly was Viktor Novikov, and why did he seem so intent on involving her in whatever he had planned? The next morning, Elena stood outside her apartment building, nervously adjusting the collar of her coat. She had spent hours agonizing over what to wear, eventually settling on a pair of tailored trousers and a simple blouse. It wasn't fancy, but it was professional enough, or so she hoped. As the sleek black sedan pulled up to the curb, her stomach churned with anticipation. The driver stepped out, opening the door for her with practiced ease. Miss Ivanova? He asked politely. Yes, she replied, forcing a smile. Thank you. Inside the car, everything smelled faintly of leather and luxury. A bottle of water rested in the cup holder, along with a note bearing Victor's handwriting. Relax, you're in good hands. Despite the reassurance, Elena couldn't help but feel out of place. This world, the polished cars, the chauffeurs, the quiet confidence, it was so far removed from her own reality. After a short drive, they arrived at a private airstrip on the outskirts of the city. Elena stepped out of the car, her jaw dropping as she took in the sight before her. A private jet gleamed under the morning sun, its sleek design exuding opulence. Standing nearby, dressed in a perfectly tailored navy suit, was Viktor Novikov. He smiled as he approached her, his presence commanding yet oddly comforting. Good morning, Miss Ivanova, he greeted her warmly. I trust the ride was comfortable? Elena nodded, still trying to process the scene around her. Yes, thank you, but why am I here? Victor gestured for her to follow him toward the plane. Let's talk on board, shall we? As they settled into plush leather seats inside the jet, Victor began to explain. You see, Miss Ivanova, I'm embarking on a business trip across Europe. My assistant fell ill unexpectedly, and I find myself in need of someone who can handle certain tasks, specifically someone with exceptional language skills. Your performance last night convinced me that you're more than capable. Elena blinked, stunned. Wait, you want me to come with you? To Europe? That's correct, he confirmed. It's only for a week. I'll compensate you generously, of course, and provide accommodations. All I ask is that you assist me with translations and any other duties that arise. She hesitated, her mind racing. This was insane. She was a waitress, not some jet-setting executive. Yet, at the same time, the opportunity was too incredible to pass up. I've never done anything like this before, she admitted quietly. What if I mess up? Victor leaned forward, his gaze steady. Everyone starts somewhere, Elena. And sometimes, all it takes is believing in yourself. I saw something in you last night. Intelligence, poise, and a willingness to step outside your comfort zone. Those qualities are rare, and I think you'll do just fine. His words struck a chord deep within her. For years, Elena had doubted her abilities, convinced that her dreams of becoming a translator were out of reach. But now, sitting across from this powerful man who seemed to believe in her potential, she felt a flicker of hope reignite. All right, she said finally, surprising even herself. I'll do it. Victor's face broke into a satisfied smile. Excellent. You won't regret it. As the plane taxied down the runway and lifted off into the sky, Elena gazed out the window at the shrinking city below. Her heart pounded with excitement and nerves. She didn't know what lay ahead, but one thing was certain. Her life was about to change in ways she could never have imagined. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to dream. to imagine a future where she wasn't confined by the limitations of her past. And maybe, just maybe, Viktor Novikov would be the key to unlocking that future. For now, though, she resolved to focus on the task at hand. Whatever challenges awaited her in Europe, she was determined to rise to the occasion. After all, this was her chance to prove to herself and to the world that she was capable of greatness. The private jet soared above the clouds, carrying Elena and Viktor toward their first destination, Paris. As the city of lights came into view, its iconic landmarks glowing softly under the morning sun, Elena couldn't help but feel a mix of awe and disbelief. Just 24 hours ago, she had been serving coffee to strangers in a bustling restaurant. Now she was flying across continents alongside one of the most powerful men in the world. It was surreal, almost dreamlike, yet every detail, the hum of the engines, the crisp scent of the cabin air, the weight of Viktor's expectations, reminded her that this was very real. Viktor wasted no time getting down to business. Once they were settled in their luxurious hotel suite overlooking the Eiffel Tower, he handed Elena a stack of documents written in Russian. "These need to be reviewed and summarized by tomorrow morning," he explained calmly. "They're contracts for a potential partnership with a French energy company. I'll need your insights on any discrepancies or areas of concern." Elena stared at the papers, momentarily overwhelmed. She had never handled anything like this before. Translating casual conversations was one thing, but deciphering legal jargon and business terms felt like stepping into uncharted territory. Still, she nodded confidently, determined not to let him, or herself, down. "I'll get started right away," she said, forcing a smile. For the rest of the day, Elena immersed herself in the task. Sitting at a small desk by the window, she pored over each line, cross-referencing unfamiliar phrases and making notes in neat handwriting. At times, frustration bubbled up. There were words she didn't recognize, clauses that seemed intentionally vague, but she refused to give up. Instead, she reminded herself why she was here, to prove that she could rise to the challenge, no matter how daunting it seemed. By late afternoon, Viktor returned from a series of meetings, his expression unreadable, as he glanced at her progress. "How's it going?" he asked, loosening his tie. "I think I'm close to finishing," Elena replied, pushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "There are a few sections I want to double-check, but overall, I've identified some key points worth discussing." Viktor raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Such as?" She hesitated, flipping through her notes. "Well, for starters, there's a clause about intellectual property rights that seems unusually restrictive. If I'm reading it correctly, it could limit your ability to expand certain technologies in other markets." He leaned back in his chair, studying her thoughtfully. "Go on." "And then there's the termination clause," she continued, gaining confidence. "It's buried deep in the fine print, but it essentially allows them to walk away without penalty if market conditions shift unfavorably. That strikes me as risky." Viktor nodded slowly, a hint of admiration flickering in his eyes. "Good catch. Both of those issues align with what my team flagged earlier. You're sharper than you realize, Miss Ivanova." Her cheeks flushed with pride, though she tried to play it cool. "I just did my best to understand the context. I figured that's what you'd expect." "Exactly," he said with a faint smile. "And that's why I brought you along. Instincts, like yours, are invaluable." Over the next few days, Elena proved herself indispensable. In Berlin, she navigated tense negotiations between Viktor and a German manufacturing firm, translating complex discussions while maintaining a neutral tone that earned respect from both sides. In St. Petersburg, she charmed local officials during a formal dinner, effortlessly switching between Russian and English as needed. Each success boosted her confidence, pushing her further out of her comfort zone and into roles she hadn't imagined possible. But it wasn't just her professional skills that impressed Viktor, it was her personality. Unlike many of the people he encountered in his high-stakes world, Elena was refreshingly genuine. She didn't try to impress him with empty flattery or calculated gestures. Instead, she spoke honestly, shared her thoughts openly, and approached every situation with humility and grace. Over shared meals and quiet moments on the plane, they began to form an unexpected bond. One evening, as they flew from Moscow to London, Victor broke the silence with a question that caught Elena off guard. "Tell me something about yourself that no one else knows," he said, his voice softer than usual. Elena hesitated, unsure how to respond. "That's a big question," she said finally, laughing nervously. "I don't know where to start." "Anywhere," he encouraged. "Something meaningful." She thought for a moment, staring out the window at the endless expanse of darkness below. "When I was younger," she began slowly, "my parents used to tell me stories about Russia, their childhoods, their dreams, the sacrifices they made to come here. They always emphasized the importance of education, hard work, and staying true to who you are. But sometimes, I wonder if they regret leaving everything behind. I mean, we have opportunities here, but we also lost so much of our culture, our roots." Victor listened intently, his expression thoughtful. "Do you ever feel like you're living two lives? One tied to your heritage, and another shaped by the world around you?" "Exactly," Elena said, surprised by how well he understood. "It's like I'm constantly balancing these two identities. Some days it feels empowering, other days it's exhausting." He nodded, his gaze distant. "I can relate. My family came from similar circumstances. We built ourselves up from nothing, but even now, decades later, I still carry pieces of that past with me. It shapes how I see the world, and how I do business." Their conversation continued long into the night, weaving through topics ranging from childhood memories to personal philosophies. For Elena, it was a revelation. Beneath Victor's polished exterior lay a man who was deeply introspective, driven, not only by ambition but also by a desire to create something meaningful. And for Victor, Elena represented a breath of fresh air, a reminder of the values he held dear, wrapped in a package of intelligence, resilience, and authenticity. As the trip progressed, their dynamic shifted subtly. While Elena remained respectful and professional, there was an undeniable ease between them, a camaraderie that transcended their differences in background and experience. Victor began to rely on her not just for translations and logistical support, but also for perspective. Her insights often challenged his assumptions, forcing him to reconsider strategies he had taken for granted. In turn, he shared glimpses of his own journey, offering advice and encouragement that fueled Elena's growing belief in herself. By the time they reached their final stop in Rome, Elena felt transformed. The shy, uncertain waitress who had boarded the plane a week earlier was gone, replaced by someone stronger, more self-assured. She had faced challenges head-on, adapted to unfamiliar environments, and proven that she belonged in spaces she once thought were beyond her reach. And though the trip was nearing its end, she knew this was only the beginning of something greater. On their last evening together, as they strolled through the cobblestone streets of Trastevere, Victor stopped suddenly and turned to face her. "Elena," he said, his tone serious yet kind, "when we return to New York, I'd like to offer you a permanent position as my executive assistant. You've exceeded my expectations in every way, and I believe you have the potential to achieve even more." Elena's heart skipped a beat. This was the opportunity of a lifetime, an invitation to step fully into a world she had only dreamed of. Yet, instead of accepting immediately, she paused, considering her response carefully. "Thank you," she said finally. "I'm honored. But I need to make sure this aligns with my goals too. I still want to pursue translation work, and I don't want to lose sight of who I am." Victor smiled, clearly pleased by her honesty. "Of course, we can structure the role however you see fit. Your growth matters to me, not just professionally, but personally." With that promise lingering in the air, they continued their walk, the golden glow of streetlights casting soft shadows around them. For Elena, the future felt brighter than ever. She had entered this adventure unsure of what awaited her, but now, standing beside Viktor Novikov, she realized that the greatest journeys weren't about reaching destinations, They were about discovering who you truly were along the way. Back in New York, life began to settle into a new rhythm for Elena. The whirlwind trip across Europe had been exhilarating, but returning to the familiar streets of Manhattan felt like stepping back into reality after a dream. Yet this time, everything seemed different. She wasn't just Elena Ivanova, the waitress struggling to make ends meet. She was now Viktor Novikov's trusted executive assistant, a role that came with responsibilities, challenges, and opportunities she could scarcely have imagined. Her first day at Novikov Global Ventures was both thrilling and nerve-wracking. The office was located on the 50th floor of a gleaming skyscraper, its walls lined with glass panels that offered breathtaking views of the city. The atmosphere buzzed with energy. Executives hurried between meetings, phones rang incessantly, and sleek monitors displayed real-time updates from global markets. For someone who had spent years balancing trays and memorizing drink orders, it was overwhelming yet invigorating. Viktor introduced her to the team during a brief meeting. "This is Elena Ivanova," he announced, his voice carrying authority. "As always, she'll be assisting me directly, handling translations, managing schedules, and supporting key projects. I trust you'll all extend her the same professionalism and respect she's shown me." The room erupted in polite applause, though Elena noticed a few skeptical glances. It wasn't hard to guess what they were thinking. Who was this newcomer? And how had she landed such a prestigious position? But Elena didn't let their doubts faze her. Instead, she focused on proving herself, not just to them, but to herself. Over the next few weeks, Elena threw herself into her work with unmatched determination. Her days started early and often stretched late into the evening. She juggled multiple tasks simultaneously, from coordinating international calls to preparing detailed reports for Viktor's review. At times, the workload felt insurmountable, but she reminded herself of the lessons she'd learned during her travels: adaptability, perseverance, and confidence in her abilities. One of her earliest assignments tested her skills to the limit. Viktor was negotiating a major deal with a Japanese tech company, and communication barriers threatened to derail the entire process. The translator assigned to the project suddenly fell ill, leaving Elena as the only person fluent enough in Russian and English to bridge the gap. With little time to prepare, she dove into technical documents, learning industry-specific terminology, and crafting clear explanations that even non-experts could understand. During the video conference, Elena sat beside Viktor, headphones securely in place, translating rapidly as engineers and executives exchanged ideas. Her calm demeanor masked the adrenaline coursing through her veins. When the meeting concluded successfully, with both parties agreeing to move forward, Viktor turned to her with a rare smile. "You saved us today," he said simply. "Thank you." Moments like these became more frequent as Elena settled into her role. She discovered that her unique blend of linguistic expertise, cultural awareness, and quick thinking made her an asset in ways no one had anticipated. Colleagues who had initially doubted her began seeking her advice, impressed by her ability to navigate complex situations with poise and precision. Even the skeptics softened, recognizing that Elena wasn't just filling a position, she was adding value. But it wasn't just her professional growth that stood out. On a personal level, Elena found herself forming a deeper connection with Viktor. Their bond, forged during those long hours on the private jet and late-night conversations in foreign cities, continued to evolve. He confided in her about the pressures of running a multinational corporation, sharing stories of sleepless nights and impossible decisions. In turn, she opened up about her own struggles, the sacrifices her parents had made, the dreams she still harbored, and the fear of never living up to her potential. Their relationship remained strictly professional, but there was an undeniable warmth between them. Viktor treated her not as an employee but as a partner, valuing her input and encouraging her ambitions. He often reminded her to prioritize her goals, urging her to pursue translation certifications and explore opportunities outside the company if it aligned with her passions. "Your future is yours to shape," he told her once. "I'm here to support you, not hold you back." As months passed, Elena's confidence soared. She rented a small apartment closer to the office, trading her cramped Queen studio for a cozy space in Midtown. She enrolled in online courses to enhance her language skills, determined to become the best version of herself. And she began networking within the industry, attending conferences and workshops where she met professionals who inspired her to aim higher. Yet despite her growing success, Elena never lost sight of her roots. Every Sunday, she visited her parents, bringing groceries and spending hours listening to their stories. They marveled at how much she had accomplished, proud of the daughter who had dared to chase her dreams. "You're making us proud," her mother said one evening, tears glistening in her eyes. "We always knew you were destined for greatness." Elena smiled, holding back her own tears. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied softly. "Everything I am, I owe to you." While her career flourished, whispers of romance inevitably surfaced. Tabloids speculated about the nature of her relationship with Victor, fueled by paparazzi photos of them dining together or walking side by side at high-profile events. Some claimed they were secretly dating, others dismissed it as mere gossip. Elena ignored the rumors, focusing instead on the truth. Their connection was built on mutual respect and admiration, not fleeting attraction. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Victor invited her to join him for dinner at his penthouse. The apartment was a masterpiece of modern design, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. As they sipped wine and discussed upcoming projects, Victor posed a question that caught Elena off guard. "Do you ever wonder what people think of us?" he asked, his tone light but probing. Elena laughed, shaking her head. "Honestly, I try not to pay attention. People will always talk no matter what we do. What matters is how we see each other and ourselves." He nodded thoughtfully, swirling the wine in his glass. "You're wise beyond your years, Elena. That's one of the many things I admire about you." Their conversation drifted toward the future, touching on aspirations and uncertainties. Elena spoke candidly about her desire to balance her role at Novikov Global Ventures with her passion for translation. Victor listened intently, offering guidance without imposing his opinions. By the end of the night, they had sketched out a plan that allowed her to pursue both paths, blending her talents in a way that felt authentic and fulfilling. As Elena left the penthouse that evening, she paused on the balcony to take in the glittering skyline. The city below pulsed with life, a testament to endless possibilities. She thought about how far she had come, from serving tables at the Velvet Lounge to standing shoulder to shoulder with one of the most influential men in the world. It hadn't been easy, and there were still challenges ahead. But for the first time in her life, she felt ready to face whatever came her way. Because Elena Ivanova wasn't just surviving anymore, she was thriving. And with Victor's unwavering support, she knew she could achieve anything she set her mind to. Months turned into a year, and Elena's transformation was nothing short of remarkable. She had gone from being an ordinary waitress in Queens to becoming one of the most indispensable figures at Novikov Global Ventures. Her days were filled with high-stakes meetings, complex negotiations, and strategic planning sessions that would have intimidated even seasoned executives. Yet Elena handled it all with grace, intelligence, and a quiet confidence that inspired those around her. Her journey wasn't without its challenges, though. There were moments when the weight of responsibility felt overwhelming, deadlines looming, decisions requiring split-second judgment, and the constant pressure to perform at her best. But every time doubt crept in, Elena reminded herself of how far she'd come. She thought back to the young woman who once doubted her worth, who feared stepping outside her comfort zone, and realized just how much she had grown. One afternoon, as she sat in Victor's office reviewing a report, he looked up from his desk and said, "You've changed, Elena." She glanced up, surprised by the sudden comment. "Changed? How so?" He leaned back in his chair, studying her thoughtfully. "When we first met, you were hesitant, unsure of yourself. Now you walk into a room like you own it. You've become fearless." Elena chuckled softly, shaking her head. "I wouldn't say I'm fearless. I still get nervous sometimes. But I've learned to push through it, to trust myself more. That's what makes someone truly fearless, Victor replied, with a faint smile. It's not about never feeling afraid. It's about acting despite the fear. Their relationship had deepened over the past year, evolving into something neither of them could have predicted. While they maintained professionalism at work, their bond transcended the boundaries of employer and employee. They shared late-night conversations about life, dreams, and regrets. They celebrated each other's victories and offered solace during setbacks. And the whispers of romance continued to swirl around them. Both chose to focus on the friendship and partnership that had become the foundation of their connection. Victor often encouraged Elena to pursue opportunities beyond her role at Novikov Global Ventures. He recognized her passion for translation and urged her to take on freelance projects, even connecting her with influential clients in the industry. Under his mentorship, Elena began building a portfolio that showcased her talent and versatility. Her name started appearing in prestigious circles, earning her recognition as a rising star in the field. But perhaps the most significant change occurred within Elena herself. She no longer saw her background as a limitation, but as a source of strength. The struggles she had faced growing up, the long hours working multiple jobs, the sacrifices her parents had made, had shaped her into the resilient, empathetic person she was today. She carried these lessons with her, using them to navigate the complexities of her new life while staying grounded in her values. One evening, after wrapping up a particularly demanding week, Victor invited Elena to join him for dinner at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the city. As they settled into their seats, the skyline shimmered with lights casting a golden glow over the table. For a moment, they simply enjoyed the view, savoring the quiet before diving into conversation. "I've been thinking," Victor began, breaking the silence, "about your future. And mine." Elena raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What about it?" He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "You've accomplished incredible things in such a short time. You've proven yourself capable of handling anything thrown your way. But I want to ensure you're not limiting yourself because of me or this job." Elena frowned slightly, unsure where he was going with this. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Victor continued, "that if there's something else you want, a different path, a new adventure, I'll support you fully. Don't stay here, out of obligation or loyalty. This is your life, Elena. You deserve to live it on your terms." His words struck a chord deep within her. Over the past year, Elena had poured her heart and soul into her work, pouring everything she had into building a career that aligned with her dreams. Yet part of her wondered if she was ready to spread her wings further, to explore uncharted territories and embrace new possibilities. After a long pause, she spoke. "Thank you for saying that. It means a lot. But honestly, I don't feel like I'm limiting myself here. Working with you has given me opportunities I never imagined. And yes, maybe someday I'll branch out completely, focus solely on translation, or even start my own business. But right now, I'm exactly where I want to be." Victor smiled, visibly relieved by her response. "That's good to hear. Just promise me one thing. Never stop dreaming bigger." "I won't," Elena promised, returning his smile. "And thank you for believing in me when no one else did." As the months passed, Elena continued to thrive, balancing her roles at Novikov Global Ventures and her growing freelance translation career. She traveled frequently, attending conferences and networking events that expanded her horizons. Her parents beamed with pride whenever she visited, marveling at how their daughter had transformed into a confident, successful woman. Friends from her old neighborhood marveled at her story, calling her an inspiration. Yet amidst all the success, Elena remained humble. She never forgot where she came from or the people who had helped her along the way. She mentored young immigrants, offering guidance and encouragement to those struggling to find their footing in a new country. She donated to causes close to her heart, ensuring that others had access to the same opportunities she had fought so hard to seize. One crisp autumn morning, as Elena stood on the balcony of her midtown apartment, she reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From answering a random phone call in Russian to boarding a private jet, from serving tables to managing million-dollar deals, every step had led her closer to the life she had always dreamed of. It hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. And as she gazed out at the sprawling cityscape, she realized something profound. Success wasn't just about reaching destinations. It was about embracing the journey, learning from every experience, and staying true to oneself. Elena Ivanova had done just that, proving that with courage, determination, and a little bit of faith, anything was possible. The wind rustled gently around her, carrying with it the promise of new adventures yet to come. Whatever the future held, Elena knew she was ready. After all, she had already shown herself and the world that she could rise above any challenge, seize any opportunity, and create a life that was uniquely, beautifully hers.